Sup, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. Also, quick thing, the entire show is not like this. I'd finished the entire show. In fact, we were uploading it. I was on the middle of a damn hike. I have one bar on my phone right now, but the news just broke and we had to mention it that former President Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts in his hush money trial. So with this being breaking news, more details coming out, I'm going to link to more information in the description down below. We're also obviously going to be talking about this in greater detail on the next show, but I also got a lot of news we got to talk about today.
We've got to talk about possibly the dumbest man alive exposing himself. Jon Stewart got a UK candidate banned, with him now slamming the Labour Party over it. Mexico's deadly political season just got deadlier. And then there's even more, so just buckle up, hit that like button to let YouTube know you like these big daily dives into the news, and let's jump into it. Starting with, I'd like you to meet one of the dumbest men alive, Corey Harris. Right, because Corey just did the dumbest thing you could do on Zoom that hasn't already been done by Jeffrey Toobin, and that he videoed into a court hearing in Washtenaw County, Michigan, while clearly driving his car.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Right, and so at first, the judge understandably appears to be a little frustrated.
You stationary?
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
You know, after a few seconds, it almost seems like he can't help but be entertained by this guy's confidence. But then he starts looking down at his papers, and you see the confusion start to set in. Because the bad news for Corey is that it's not just that he's on his phone while driving, it's a whole legal thing. This is a bad move. Turns out the whole reason that Corey has to be in court at all is for driving on a suspended license. And so as this is happening, Harris's lawyer is asking for the hearing to be adjourned and picked back up in a few weeks, but the judge has already caught on.
Okay. So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended,
That is correct, Your Honor.
and he was just driving, and he didn't have a license.
And so the judge confirms with the lawyer that this is really happening. And then there is this long silence with Harris's face just frozen in an expression likely to be immortalized in some sort of meme. And ultimately, after a few moments, the judge making this decision.
I don't even know why he would do that. So defendant's bond is revoked in this matter. Defendant is to turn himself into the Washtenaw County Jail by 6 p.m. today. Failure to turn himself in will result in a bench warrant with no bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Harris, I'll be giving you a call.
And y'all, I think of myself as someone that's forgetful. But zooming into a court hearing about you driving on a suspended license while you are actively driving on a suspended license is the fucking most insane thing I've ever heard. Corey, how are you still alive? We don't need to send Corey to jail. He needs to be in a room monitored by scientists. This level of stupid needs to be studied, right? And as you probably expect, the internet has been completely ruthless about this man. People finding it hilarious, unbelievable, all the emotions you're having, people are having. But also beyond this viral moment, there is the open question of, well, what are the consequences actually going to be? Right? I mean, his defense attorney, for example, told reporters that she strives to live in a world where people are not jailed for nonviolent offenses. Right now, it is unclear what consequences exactly Harris is facing or whether that would include any jail time. Though in Michigan, for example, the law does say that even for a first-time offense for driving with a suspended license, that can carry a jail sentence of up to 93 days. And then, I mean, for repeat offenders, the jail time can increase up to a year. But yeah, I would love to know your thoughts with this one, whether it be about the jail time or just our guy Corey. And then you got American Airlines flight in the news today, but it's not because like a door suddenly burst open or the plane plummeted 3,000 feet out of nowhere, but instead it's because this flight that was set to go from Phoenix to New York while just sitting on the tarmac, right, waiting to take off, when all of a sudden a flight attendant selects 8 men and orders them off of the plane.
There was a flight attendant walking down the aisle and they were plucking people with what seemed at random, telling them that they had to be placed onto another flight.
So you just have to take your belongings. And I was like, why? She was like, oh, we'll tell you when we get off the plane.
And so they get off and they turn around and they look at each other and they realize, hey, wait a second.
This is
crazy. Y'all just took like 8 black people off the plane.
Right, all 8 of them, black men. They didn't know each other, they weren't seated together, and they said they appeared to be the only black men on the flight. And so understandably, they're like, well, what's going on? With the airline staff then explaining that they were removed because of a body odor complaint made by a flight attendant who is a white man. Though none of them were individually singled out, and all of them denied having body odor. Also, the flight attendant didn't just go to the source of the supposed odor and pick whoever the culprit was, as their lawyer explains.
American Airlines representatives walked down the aisle and systematically picked out every black male passenger aboard the flight. They were going into separate rows on different sides of the plane.
They were hesitant and like, okay, like trying to find where the black people were. Like, oh, I don't even, oh, there's another one. There you go.
So naturally, they're like, okay, what the fuck? This is clearly racist. And you can hear them arguing with the staff in a cell phone video.
So this is discrimination. Yo, this is insane. I agree. Yo, just because of the color of my skin.
Meanwhile, you had the airline insisting that they had to get rebooked on a different flight, but the staff couldn't find one to New York that night. And so after about an hour, they let the men return to their seats on the plane, which prompted stage 2 of the experience, which they called traumatic, upsetting, scary, humiliating, and degrading.
I knew that as soon as I get on that plane, a sea of white faces were going to be looking at me and blaming me for their late flight of an hour.
Had to go back on the plane with everybody looking at us, everybody staring at me.
And so now 3 of them are suing American Airlines for what they say is blatant and egregious race discrimination. With one telling the Washington Post, unfortunately, I'm a black man and I live in America. It wakes you back up to the reality that I can't just go to the store. I can't just do regular things like take a plane home. And actually, looking into this is not American Airlines' first rodeo, we'll call it. In fact, the NAACP issued a travel advisory against the company back in 2017 due to several incidents where black people were removed from planes for various reasons. Though notably, the group did lift the warning the following year after the airline made a number of changes, including to its employee training. But yeah, here we are today. And then, in quick entertainment news, this morning, Time released its list of 100 most influential companies, with probably most notably Sam Altman and OpenAI making the cut. Also, you had the WNBA, with Time specifically singling out Caitlin Clark for driving its viewership records to new heights, as well as Selena Gomez's Rare Beauty, a company now valued at $2 billion. And there, Time also noting how much of a focus inclusivity and mental health play in Rare Beauty's business model, and at one point calling that good business and saying, in a 2023 study of Gen Z and millennial consumers in the US, 80% said that they were more likely to purchase from a brand based on its mission. And adding another 2023 study found that Gen Z wants brands to focus on mental health more than any other issue, including climate. Though they also focused on Rare Beauty products for being relatively affordable compared to other major makeup brands, noting that Rare Beauty sells foundation for $30, whereas Rihanna's Fenty charges $40, and other brands are as high as $90. Then, in other quick news, in the UK, you have reports that homeless people in the capital of Scotland are being shipped out of the city right now, with that reportedly to make way for what's expected to be hundreds of thousands of tourists headed to see Taylor Swift perform next week. And with that, one shelter in the city saying that several people it supports have been taxied out to surrounding cities. And that, even though it said those people would usually be offered temporary accommodations at places like hotels within the city, which becomes especially notable because legally, Scotland has to offer emergency temporary accommodations to people declared homeless. And on top of that, the capital declared a housing emergency back in November because of record homelessness and soaring rent prices, which is why you have the shelter calling this a blatant injustice that the city is putting its homeless in direct competition with tourists. And its director noting even if they're being accommodated in other cities, a family going through the trauma of homelessness, they shouldn't have to move miles from their job, school, and community to find emergency accommodation. Right? And that argument's not coming out of nowhere, with roughly a third of homeless cases in the country involving kids. And while there's no evidence that homeless people are getting kicked out of places that they're already staying, the optics for this, they're not great, with many now asking Taylor Swift either to do something or criticizing her for not speaking out on the situation. Though also, like we talked about yesterday, that's not the only thing that her fans have been trying to get her to speak on. And then we've got to talk about this insanely messy situation involving the UK Labour Party, Jon Stewart, and the allegations of anti-Semitism. Because yesterday, the news broke that the Labour Party had banned a left-wing academic by the name of Faiza Shaheen, with them specifically banning her from standing as a candidate in the upcoming election over tweets that she liked that some members considered objectionable. With this including one tweet in particular that the Jewish labor movement had complained about that read, "Every time you say something even mildly critical of Israel, you're immediately assailed by scores of hysterical people who explain to you why you're completely wrong, how you're biased against Israel. Moreover, you can't easily ignore them because those are not just random people. They tend to be friends or people who move in the same circles as you. Those people are mobilized by professional organizations." But when that tweet was flagged and read aloud by a BBC host in an interview with Shaheen, she responded by explaining,
"I don't remember liking this tweet. I was looking, if you see that tweet, it was a retweet of a Jon Stewart sketch. I watched the Jon Stewart sketch. But I wouldn't have even ordinarily liked that. Honestly, it was the middle of the night. If you look at the timing, I was probably with the baby breastfeeding.
And according to reports, the Jon Stewart clip in question was actually one from way back in 2014. And there, Stewart does a bit where he's trying to talk about an Israeli ground offensive happening at the time. But, every time he says the word Israel, he gets yelled at by 4 of the show's correspondents.
We'll start tonight in the Middle East, where Israel... What? Israel isn't supposed to defend itself?
Oh, yeah, if Mexico bombed Texas, will we exercise
What other country is held to the same standard as Israel?
People that want to destroy
our territory? What is the matter with you?
It's the only democracy in the Middle East, you turd!
Self-hating Jew?
Right in there, Stewart hits on the fact that even Jews like himself, they get slammed for criticizing Israel or called self-hating, which many Jewish people actually find anti-Semitic because it draws from the dual loyalty trope that a Jewish person's true allegiance is only to Israel. So it ends up being kind of ironic that this is what Shaheen is getting in trouble over, which is something even Jon Stewart himself noted, retweeting a post on X that shared the video and writing, "This is the dumbest thing the UK has done since electing Boris Johnson. What the actual fuck?" Though there, I also want to quickly note here that the post that he retweeted did get a community note clarifying that she had liked a post about the clip, not the clip itself. But to that point, we did see Shaheen telling BBC that she did understand that the tweet she had liked was wrong.
I know what's wrong with it, of course.
What is wrong with it?
The line that's there about they're in professional organizations, it plays into a trope, and I absolutely don't agree with that, and I'm sorry about that.
But they're also going on to say that this was just one tweet that she liked, arguing that her actions in her community and for Jewish constituents should be more important, and going on to complain about double standards in the Labor Party. And actually, to that point, we saw Shaheen doubling down on those claims again today, with her announcing that she'll be challenging the Labor Party's decision and accusing it of launching, quote, a systemic campaign of racism, Islamophobia, and bullying, further claiming that the party has a palpable problem with Black and brown people. But for now, that's where we are, and we're gonna have to wait to see how this whole mess plays out, especially with the snap election just around the corner on July 4th. And then, when it comes to my wife and my kids, I want to do everything I can to protect them. And when it comes to our home, I feel so much better after installing SimpliSafe, who also, wouldn't you know it, happens to be today's fantastic sponsor of the show. So big thanks to them. But SimpliSafe is comprehensive security for the whole home, with advanced sensors and cameras to detect threats from break-ins to fires, floods, and more. Your home is professionally monitored 24/7. If anything happens, SimpliSafe's expert agents act within 5 seconds of receiving an alarm signal and take immediate steps to ensure your family's safety. With Smart Alarm indoor camera, these agents can even see and speak to intruders in real time, stopping them in their tracks. And it's these types of features that help me sleep at night, as well as when we're on vacation. And for those of you with teenagers, this helps monitor them as well. In like the next month or so, this set's changing, stuff's happening. One of the first things I think about ever since someone literally broke into my set while I was filming that time years ago is safety, is security, and not having to stress about that, knowing I have this. It's amazing. I mean, that's less than half the cost of traditional security systems with no long-term contracts or hidden fees. And it's easy to install yourself, or they have professionals that can do it for you. So yeah, go to simplisafe.com/YouTube and save 20% on your system. And your first month is free when you sign up for Fast Protect monitoring. Because y'all, there's no safe like SimpliSafe. And then, in the least shocking news today, Samuel Alito has officially refused to recuse himself in 2 January 6th related cases after it was revealed that different flags associated with Stop the Steal had been flown outside of his houses. Or as others put it, Samuel Alito has decided that Samuel Alito is sufficiently impartial. Because as I talked about last week, Alito had been facing sweeping calls to remove himself from the cases, one of which centers on Trump's immunity, with all this coming after the New York Times reported 2 separate incidents, both of which involved different flags tied to the effort to overturn the election and featured prominently at the insurrection. The first being an upside-down American flag, which has long been a sign of distress, particularly in the military, but more recently has been reclaimed as a symbol of Stop the Steal, with that one notably being flown outside his Virginia home in the days after the insurrection. While then the second flag was an Appeal to Heaven flag flown at Alito's Long Beach Island home last summer. While that flag dates back to the Revolutionary War, it's also evolved more recently, becoming a symbol that's been embraced by Christian nationalists who support creating a more Christian government. And all of this should be important because Supreme Court justices are required to avoid any kind of political statements or displays, especially on topics that come before the court, as is the case here. But in a letter to lawmakers declining to recuse himself, he took the shaggy defense, saying, "It wasn't me. My wife, Martha Ann, she put up those flags," saying she was, quote, "fond of flying flags and flew them often," claiming he didn't even notice the upside-down flag at first, and when he did, he asked his wife to remove it, but she refused for several days. And as far as why she did it, he said that she was greatly distressed at the time due in large part to a very nasty neighborhood dispute, and claiming a house on the street displayed a sign attacking her personally, and a man who was living in the house at the time trailed her all the way down the street and berated her in my presence using foul language, including what I regard as the vilest epithet that can be addressed to a woman. But, very notably here, neighbors and police reports directly contradicted Alito's timeline of events. Right? Alito himself himself had previously said that the dispute between his wife and neighbors arose after they displayed anti-Trump signs on their lawn, with him telling Fox News that the situation escalated after an argument where one of the residents began calling her derogatory language, including the C word, by saying that specific incident left her so distraught she decided to hang the inverted flag as a statement. But a call to police indicated that the incident involving bad language that actually took place on February 15th, weeks after the upside-down flag was flown and taken down. Also, significantly here, that call wasn't made by Martha Ann, but by the neighbors who said that she had been harassing them. And then beyond that, another thing that's super notable about this is what it omits. With the Times reporting, Justice Alito's letter did not dispute that the upside-down flag conveyed support for the Stop the Steal movement. Right, and that really stands out because he does explicitly claim that neither he nor his wife knew the Appeal to Heaven flag, that had a connection to the Stop the Steal movement, writing that his wife may have mentioned the flag's history in the American Revolution, but adding that he, quote, assumed she was flying it to express a patriotic and religious message, arguing that she didn't fly to associate with Stop the Steal or any other group, and making a clear effort to distance himself from his wife's efforts here, saying they owned the home jointly, so she has the legal right to use it as she sees fit, going on to say that she is a private citizen who has the same First Amendment rights as everyone else, and concluding he won't recuse himself because a reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of Supreme Court cases would conclude this event does not meet the applicable standard for recusal. Though on that front, many experts disagree, like Amanda Frost, for example, a law professor at the University of Virginia, saying, I agree that Justice Alito's wife has a First Amendment right to express her views, but if she does so on their shared property in a way that would lead a reasonable person to question his impartiality, then he should respond by recusing himself. And with that, her giving another hypothetical example here, explaining, I would say the same if Justice Ginsburg's husband had placed a Gore 1 sign on the lawn of their shared home while the Bush-Gore election was being contested in the courts. But that is ultimately where we are with this, and it's exactly how I said this was going to play out. And that doesn't make me the smartest man in the room. That makes me just not the dumbest. Because I really do think that you've either not been paying attention or like you're not tethered to reality if you thought this was going to play out any other way. Or when personal accountability is like the only thing to rein something in the highest halls of power, what do you fucking think is going to happen? And then, the IRS has totally failed to crack down on ultra-wealthy Americans who have used tax breaks in Puerto Rico to evade paying potentially billions of dollars in taxes. That's what just got revealed by this IRS whistleblower who wrote a letter obtained by the New York Times, as well as interviews with agency officials. Because back in 2012, Puerto Rico enacted a number of tax breaks aimed at encouraging wealthy Americans and corporations to move to the island in order to help revitalize its economy. And while 100% has been successful in drawing in tons of rich people to become residents of the territory, it has also long been alleged that the tax breaks enable millionaires to just avoid paying what they owe in taxes. So you have this situation where tax breaks meant to help the Puerto Rican economy are just being exploited by the ultra-rich to pad their own pockets. But also the big key thing is all while costing the islands billions of dollars in tax revenue and driving up housing costs for locals who are pushed out of their homes by rich foreigners moving to the island en masse and buying up properties. Right? We're not talking about like a little light tax evasion here. Senator Ron Wyden, the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, told the Times that people are potentially evading billions of dollars in taxes. And specifically, there have long been concerns about a particular tax break for people who make big profits selling off investments while they're residing in Puerto Rico. For example, you have the Times saying, if a wealthy investor buys a big stake in a business in 2013, moves to Puerto Rico in 2020, and then sells their stake for a fat profit in 2023, they're exempt from paying federal taxes on the 3 years of profits they made on the island. But big key thing here, they are still required to pay the federal government for the first 7 years of profits they made while still residing on the U.S. mainland. With all of that being subject to capital gains taxes, right? Think about probably nearly 25% of profits. So that becomes a ton of money when we're talking about big investments. They could owe the feds millions and millions of dollars. But you have tax advisors saying that some investors are claiming that all of the profits from their investments that they're exempt from taxes, right? Notably, including the money that they made while living on the mainland that should be taxed. Which is why about 3 years ago, the IRS said, hey, we're going to do something about this. And the agency launching a campaign to crack down on possible abuses. But the whistleblower letter says that they have absolutely failed to do basically anything at all, with them saying that less than 20 people have been contacted as part of the IRS campaign, which is less than 1% of the people who received the tax break. And also adding, my understanding is that no assessments have been made by any office nationwide for a campaign that has been open for 3 years. This is completely absurd in light of the amount of tax dollars at issue. And that's also been backed by others, with another tax lawyer telling the Times that he told the IRS about dozens of possible examples, but none of the people he flagged got audited. With also multiple tax advisors who specialize in disputes with the IRS also saying they haven't seen many signs that the agency is doing anything, actually. Now that said, as far as how the IRS has responded, the agency's commissioner argued that the enforcement campaign is moving slow because it's still in its early chapters, claiming that dozens of taxpayers have actually already been audited. But then another IRS official refuted that, saying the number was closer to 20, seemingly backing up the whistleblower claims. And what's more, another official also said that no taxes have actually been collected yet. In fact, the situation is so bad now that Senate officials are now investigating the whistleblower's accusations. But as far as what happens here, we'll have to wait and see. And in the meantime, you will probably be paying more in taxes than a lot of people that should be paying their fair share. And then, in huge international news, Mexico's political campaign season is coming to a bloody end. With just yesterday, a gunman shooting and killing an aspiring mayor at a rally in the southern state of Guerrero, where the candidate's name was Jose Alfredo Cabrera, and the attack was actually captured on camera, with the footage showing him smiling and surrounded by supporters in the moments right before he was shot. And according to officials, the suspected attacker was also killed at the scene, while there were 3 people also injured and 2 others detained. And as we've talked about before, this is unfortunately not unusual. Right? Mexico's cartels have targeted and killed candidates from all of the country's major parties, with Alfredo Cabrera's murder bringing the number of candidates killed this election season to at least 23, with some advocacy groups reporting that the real number is over 30. I mean, a day before Alfredo Cabrera's murder, for example, a mayoral candidate in the central state of Morelos was murdered, while another one was wounded by gunfire in western Jalisco state. And just last week, 9 people were killed in 2 attacks against mayoral candidates in the southern state of Chiapas. But with all that said, we shouldn't let the violence distract us from the fact that this election is still taking place, and it is a historic one. In fact, it's actually the biggest election in the country's history. When voters head to the polls in a few days, more than 20,000 congressional and local positions are going to be up for grabs. And more than that, it's expected to deliver the country's first female president. But with whoever wins, tackling cartel violence will be among the major challenges they face. Right on top of the political candidates killed this year, more than 450,000 people have been murdered and tens of thousands have gone missing in Mexico since 2006. And with that, the frontrunner this year is a woman by the name of Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. They're currently enjoying a sizable lead at the poll with 53% of voter support, with her also being the candidate backed by the current president, AMLO. And to that point, she's pledged to continue his social programs and strategy of tackling crime at its roots, a controversial policy that he calls hugs, not bullets, with an example of that policy being offering apprenticeships to encourage youths to not join drug cartels. And this is there's a sizable gap to the next leading candidate. Pulling in at 36% is a woman by the name of Xochitl Galvez Ruiz, a woman who has said that with AMLO's strategy, the hugs have been for criminals and the bullets for citizens. And to that point, cartels and other criminal groups in Mexico have reportedly gained greater control over more territory in the country under AMLO's leadership. Though notably, at the same time, we've seen violence escalate in the past when former Mexican presidents have deployed the army against cartels, which is why you have many saying there are no easy solutions here. It should also be noted that AMLO has faced other criticisms as well, with many claiming that his policies have eroded Mexican democracy and brought the country closer to authoritarianism. Though despite that, he remains incredibly popular there, with many arguing that his support for Sheinbaum Pardo that virtually guarantees her victory. But this also, as her supporters have said, that she is not a puppet of AMLO. Right in there, pointing to the fact that her policies often diverged from his when she was serving as the first female mayor of Mexico City. But as far as what this election is going to fully look like, we'll see soon. And in the meantime, if you're watching from Mexico or you have family or friends there, I'd especially love to know your thoughts on this. And then finally, today we've got community updates and commentary. For community updates, it actually starts with a massive thank you. Right, thank you to everyone that's made this beautiful bastard drop this week so huge. And also, for those of you that haven't gotten in on it yet, definitely get it. There are a number of things that are sold out, or there are a lot of sizes that are sold out, with the color 3-packs definitely being the winner, which absolutely makes sense. So much love and time was spent making these perfect. I've gotten like the most positive emails about them since we did the first drop. So if you want to snag the last few in your size, which by the way, we go from small to 5XL, definitely recommend going to the site. And we still have some left of the Embrace Change Zip hoodie, beautiful bastard angel death, have a great fucking day, emotionally exhausted gear. But then as far as commentary, man, the comments were almost exclusively about that Louisiana story yesterday. And I mean, understandably so. With some of y'all like Rachel Hansen saying, as an atheist and a teacher, it is insulting that legislatures want schools to post religious texts. I would strongly consider civil disobedience to these laws that go against my own free speech. But you had some like Grace saying, leave it up. They get bigger posters of all the other religions, including Satanism. Tobo saying, religious lawmakers said the quiet part out loud. They want to abolish the separation of church and state. Bebop saying, the degradation of separation of church and state is scary. I don't need someone else to validate my beliefs by forcing them on someone else. I hope and pray we get these entitled politicians out before they completely destroy the US. So there you had some responding saying, it's not about validating religious belief, it's about control. And RWG saying, I live in Louisiana. We rank the worst in almost every metric that matters compared to other states: education, healthcare, obesity, crime rate, etc. Our state needs to pay teachers, invest in healthcare, invest in childcare and youth. This bill is a stupid waste of time and money that'll have no real benefit for any school children, and it is a clear violation of separation of church and state. But adding, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. This is par for the course in Louisiana. But then finally, today, to end on a light note, a lot of people just said, hey, great job to the editors for that final joke, which I'll tell you, they got me because when they cut the audio out of me doing my outro, I about had a fucking heart attack. And so I'll have to ask them how much it was about you guys laughing versus how much just fucking with me they were going for. I feel like it was probably 50-50, 60-40. But with that said, that's where your Thursday evening, Friday morning show is going to end. But I'll see you soon, because remember, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here on Monday.